Test. 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 Can you hear me, Roy?
Roy, can you hear me? Roy, can you hear me?
I sure can.
He's saying, John, he's saying, John, he's saying, turn it.
It's up as loud as it'll go.
Oh, really? Okay. Thanks. Do it.
How's this, Roy?
Yeah, here he is,
Hey, Dexter.
right on time.
Good afternoon, evening, whatever it is.
Dexter, thanks for coming. Get situated.
Oh, okay. He's on Zoom.
Yep. All right, everybody, if you'll quiet down, would like to call to order this special call meeting of the Spalding County Board of Election and Registration, July 24th, 2023. If everybody would please silence your cell phones and all other electronic devices. We've got a lot of people in the room. Please turn the ringers off, okay? If everybody would stand for the invocation and prayer. James is going to lead us.
I am.
All right.
Please pray with me. Our Father which art in heaven, we come before thee this night concerned for the voting integrity of our state, concerned for our responsibility as a board of elections, and we pray for thy divine guidance, which we know will be with us. And we pray these things in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. If you'll join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag All right, thank you all. Next up is citizen comment. We've got like 20 speakers, so I'm going to ask everybody to make sure when you hear the beep, beep, beep up here, I'm going to be gabbling too, so you got 3 minutes strict. Need to hold everybody to that, and please, no outbursts or anything like that, okay, y'all? Other note, speakers must sign up prior to the meeting and provide their names, addresses, and the topic they wish to discuss. Speakers must direct your remarks to the board and not to individual board members or to the audience. Personal disagreements with individual board members or employees are not a matter of public concern, and personal attacks will not be tolerated. The chairman has a right to limit your comments in the interest of disposing of the board's business in an efficient and respectable manner. Speakers will be allotted 3 minutes to speak on their chosen topics as they relate to matters pertinent to the jurisdiction of the Board of Elections and Registration. No questions will be asked by any of the board members during citizen comments. Outbursts from the audience will not be tolerated. Common courtesy and civility are expected at all times during the meeting. No speaker will be permitted to speak more than 3 minutes or more than once unless the board votes to suspend this rule. Okay. First up is Maxwell Britton, County Legal Authority.
You said, sorry, I missed it.
County Legal Authority is your topic?
County, Coweta?
Oh, no, sir. Your topic that you read was County Legal Authority.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
All right, so that is the topic, you're right. I am Maxwell Britton. I do live in Coweta County. I'm here today to correct false information about our county that may have been received from the Secretary of State about the legal authority the county has to conduct its own elections. The Secretary has intimidated counties by claiming that he has authority to dictate how they conduct elections. Meanwhile, the governor and the state election board, and he admitted in court that they have no such legal authority, election authority over counties. The Secretary cites OCGA 21-2300 for his election equipment authority. but that same statute explains his chosen system violates state law. The U.S. District Court confirmed in an October 2020 order his system is illegal since it does not produce a ballot marked with the elector's choices in human readable format. That is an example of why the U.S. District Court found the Secretary of State flatly not credible in an August 2019 order. Everyone should know that the counties produce their election results. The Secretary of State office only accumulates county results for the states. At most, 21-300 requires counties to use the same vendor and equipment model types. However, all Georgia counties determine the number of ballot marking devices and scanners they choose to employ their election servers. OCGA 21-334 and 366, are overriding statutes confirming legal authority for Georgia counties. 334 authorizes election boards to use hand-marked and hand-counted paper ballots if they deem the system impracticable. 366 authorizes the commissions to buy more optical scan equipment as needed to count the ballots. The current QR coded voting system is unverifiable to the voter, was declared illegal by a U.S. District Court, and is deemed unsecure by 30 technology experts, and the system even crowned the wrong winners in 2022 primary. It is obvious that the system is not practicable. The board must immediately act to protect voters with a legal, verifiable, accurate, and secure voting system for 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving right along, Sean Miller, election integrity.
Good evening. Thank y'all for assembling tonight, a special meeting to come out and talk about this important subject. I support going to paper ballots, and I hope you guys will vote for it. We have an opportunity at this time to change the direction of everything. We've seen what works, we've seen what doesn't work, and we can count them by paper. We don't need the machines. I'd like us to get away from that and start doing something that will work, and that we can, the people here can say, yes, that count was correct. This is a verifiable, secure vote, and it's on paper, counted by hand, and we can have the results that same day. So that's what I'd like you to do, and I support that. There seems to be a wave of problems being addressed finally in Congress, not in our county. But, oh, and by the way, I'm Sean Miller. I live at 290 Freeman Forest Drive in Noonan, Georgia. And is your placard turned up? I'm not sure. Is yours Dexter?
No, that's Dexter.
Okay, yes, sir. Okay, thank you. Just checking. So this is important to me. I came all the way from Coweta just to speak on this subject, to make sure you understood it. You have people behind you that support you this decision, that want you to make the right decision, which would be easy. It would cost less to go to paper ballots. It's a little to your left, Mr. Winbush. Thank you, sir. Just wanted to make sure I knew who you were. Thank you. I think there's an opportunity here to change the tide. And this is, you gotta grab it. You gotta take this. If you don't, then it's hard to imagine what would come next. I mean, everything that we do is based on these elections. And we don't want to have people that are in office that technically shouldn't be, or there's a doubt in people's minds as to whether they were actually the elected person. So I encourage you to go to paper ballots. I encourage you to take this step and to be bold. At the same time, it's the right way to go, and this is the way that things are going. And it would be, I think that this would be good for the cost savings as well. It cost a lot less. They're trying to increase the amount of money, or amount of spending in my county, and I don't want to pay it. The economy's so bad. Why do we want to raise taxes? Why do we want to cost more? How can we justify that when we can go to a simpler way that would cost less? Thank you for letting me speak. Thank you for coming out this evening. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. Next up, Brian Parker, also speaking on election integrity.
Thank you. Brian Parker from Banks County, Georgia. I want to recap some of the findings that David Cross, Garland Favorito, Kevin Moncla, and Joe Rossi have found. In 2020, Fulton County has
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We're going to look. Please silence your cell phones. Wow. Okay. How much time does it have? Did you pause it?
Yes.
Okay. You get the rest of your time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So in 2020, Fulton County had unsigned tabulator tapes for over 300,000 votes. Fulton County is missing 376 ballot images from ballot count number 1. 74 Georgia counties cannot produce 1.7 million ballot images due to being destroyed. There are 17,700 missing ballot images from Fulton. Raffensperger told the Today Show a turnout of 4.7 million votes, but then certified 4.98 million votes, around 300,000 extra. Since 2020, we have learned ballot paper verification is disabled across the state. The QR code signature mismatch error, otherwise known as the Williamson, Tennessee error, causes the machines to stop counting properly. It has been proven to exist in 64 of the 67 Georgia counties that have been analyzed. Seen in multiple counties in Georgia, the machines flip votes from one candidate to another. Also seen in multiple counties, the poll pads increases vote tallies without human intervention. Machine software is certified with a false document. Flash drives are used regularly, and we now know for sure via the Halderman report that potentially have malware on them. Despite the narrative, all machines are connected to the internet and all polling locations require Wi-Fi. We're out of next times. We, the people of Georgia, demand no more machines, no centralized voter rolls, and paper ballots. We are done with the theft of our elections. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. Next up, Kim Brooks, Phantom Voters.
Hi, guys. I want to talk about phantom voters, and there are going to be several other people that talk about phantom voters tonight. Why is that important? Because phantom voters are being created on your voter rolls outside of the county election officials' activity. I want you to look at this man right here. He speaks to me. I take him everywhere. His name is Thomas Henry Edwards. He is a Vietnam vet. He served our country for 20 years in the Air Force. He was a deacon in his church. Why do I know so much about him? Because he's dead. He has the most beautiful obituary. You can look it up. He was from Pearson, Georgia. What did we do to him? We brought him back as an active voter. In May, they brought him back at 780 Canceled Voter Street. I'm not making this up. In June, they changed him to 780 West Albany Avenue. Turns out, Mr. Edwards' wife is now deceased, and his stepson lives in the house, so he got it in the estate. We knocked on the door. His stepson says he died 4 years ago. If it's not worse, they've now created a duplicate on Mr. Edwards. So now there are two phantom dead people.
Kim, make sure you're addressing the board.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I just want everybody to know about Mr. Edwards. I'm sorry. I'm not picking on anybody. Sorry, Ben. So, we have two Mr. Edwards, and Mr. Edwards died in 2019. This is criminal and shameful. And it occurred on this county election person's rolls, and they had nothing to do with it. So not only is the Secretary of State not cleaning up dead person off the voter roll, they're now We've caught them adding phantom dead people on the voter roll. It's a Vietnam vet, and I carry Mr. Edwards with me everywhere. We deserve better than this. So you need to know when you're making this huge decision tonight, it's the machines. And the way the machines cheat is the phantom voters. They're going to vote on Mr. Edwards' back, and he met Jesus in 2019. So no centralized voter rolls, because you don't know what's going on in them. You think you do. Kimberly does a great job. But this is occurring without the county election person's knowledge. I've got felons being reissued. You're going to hear about them tonight. Because these phantom voters are real. We've heard about them for years, and now we're catching them. God bless you. God bless your decision tonight. And God bless these United States of America.
That note, please. Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Next up is Nancy Curdy, election integrity.
Hi, I'm Nancy Curdy. I'm from Snellville, Georgia, Gwinnett County. I certainly do appreciate you all being here tonight. Thank you. Would you vote with a machine if you knew the machine is illegally being used? Would you vote on a machine that could change an election, negatively impacting your future and the future of your children? On December 17, 2020, Judge Legan, with 16 years' experience, told the executive branch of Georgia, quote, "The oral testimonies of witnesses on December 3, 2020, and subsequently the written testimonies submitted by many others provide ample evidence that the 2020 Georgia general election was so compromised by systemic irregularities and voter fraud that it should not be certified," end quote. On December 22, 2020, our Secretary of State stated he's going to use all of government to investigate all of this election fraud. On January 6, 2021, just 14 days later, he wrote a 10-page letter to VP Pence and U.S. Congress saying that there were no election crimes in Georgia. He told him he had conducted an audit of the machines using forensic methods and everything was perfect. This Pro V&V audit never took place. This county is one of 6 counties that the Secretary of State mentioned in his letter to Congress. The audit described by the SOS never took place. His audit report does not contain one serial number from a machine, not one security seal. His deception continued with 42 false statements in his letter to Congress. When you read Curling v. Raffensperger, it becomes evident that the machines and software were never certified per our state law, so now is the time to get rid of them. We now know the methods used to bloat the voter rolls before each election: vote inactive voters, voters from other states, and phantom voters. As we are reminded by Reverend Fosdick, quote, "In a world which turns so quickly to the lure of pleasing generalities, it is well to pause and think deeply of whether each one as an individual is a part of the problem or a part of the answer." I so appreciate your consideration. I am so looking forward to y'all being the breaking of the seal of the 159 counties. Thank you for your courage.
Thank you, Nancy. Next up, Richard Schroeder on election.
I'm Richard Schroeder. I'm from Gainesville, Georgia, Hall County. I want to thank you all for being here and being that tipping point to this controversial time in the history of the United States of America. I'm a poll worker, so I know what you guys work. It's cyclic and it's crazy, trying to get elections right. As a poll worker, all I want is the votes of the people. I don't want no machine or QR code deciding who's going in office. That's how you end up with Fetterman, Biden. Enough of that. I'm a veteran of the United States of America, U.S. Army vet. When I become a soldier, I took an oath. I'm going to read you that oath. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We're at a point in history where we lost more to fentanyl than we lost in World War II because of an open border. I just saw a movie last week, Freedom, Silence of Freedom. Appalling. A normal person can't fathom what's going on in this country right now with sex trafficking. Sex trafficking. I thought it was just prostitution of some sort. No, it's ridiculous pedophiles. This has to stop. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, I don't care where you're at in the middle of the road. We're Americans and we have to fix this. Everything is going wrong. Our country's going to hell and we're watching it. We can't allow it. There's no plan B. I'm thankful that you're here and I plead that you make a godly decision. Not left, not right. Just do what God's will is. Let me finish this pledge that I took. Oath. So help me God. This mess was created by man, not God. And it won't be fixed by men or women. But you can do your part. Because we've asked God, and He's on our side. And thank you for hearing us tonight.
Thank you, Richard. Next up, Lucia Fraser, also speaking on election.
Lucia Frazier, Georgia resident. The paper ballot process is the simplest and cheapest process that we can use. Hand counting at the precinct level is a closed loop process, and it greatly increases the public's trust. It's also a really great way to get all local residents involved in the hand counting process and either working or watching. Moving to the paper ballot process is just going back to what we used to do anyway. There really shouldn't be any fear in moving forward with this. The processes are tried and true. As U.S. citizens, over time, many of us did not prioritize participating somewhere, somehow in our government, me included. And I attribute that to not properly taught civics in the schools. But we're here now. A lot of us are here now, and we're ready to help. The process has to be in our hands at the most local level, in order for this unique U.S. designed engine to run right. And thank God that this engine is not totally dismantled yet. So we have opportunities now to, while we still have the power to make some of these changes and start going back to the original engine that was designed, to keep the power in the people's hands. And we'll teach our children the same thing, and we will hopefully keep this going. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucia. Next up, Jason Frazier.
Hello, my name is Jason Frazier. I'm a Georgia resident also. I don't need to harp on a lot of the things that the other folks have said. They've covered a lot of the bases. As far as dead people coming back to life, I've seen that on the voter rolls. As far as any issue you can imagine, make up a story, they're on the voter rolls. Whether it's people living in those little UPS boxes, they don't fit. They don't live there. There are thousands of them. There are people that live at the MARTA station on the voter rolls. There are people in vacant lots. I challenged a voter at a business address last year. They went from one mailbox store, re-registered at another mailbox store. I've challenged a lot of them that lived at mailbox stores, and then they let them vote at the mailbox store in the next election, and I turn it in. What does Fulton County do? They ignore my responses. They know they're dirty. They're the dirtiest county I've seen in Georgia. I've looked at a lot of different counties. They're by far the worst. But I mean, that should be very bipartisan. Everybody should just agree, one person, one vote. The worst one I found is one guy registered 11 times. Now, he didn't vote 11 times, but he was registered 11 times. That costs a ton of money maintaining the rolls when people are registered that many times. Or the thousands of people that have moved out of the state that stay on the rolls for years to come. And unfortunately, we size our precincts based on registrants, not actual live bodies that come into those. So it costs us a tremendous amount of money with these vending machines. The other thing, I mean, just looking at this practically from the standpoint of someone that has worked at the elections. I've been a poll tech in several elections. If you're a poll tech, you show up there at 5 o'clock in the morning. It takes you a solid 3 hours of working your tail off to get the precinct set up because of all the machines. If you just look at total hours spent getting those machines set up, if you look at setting them up in the warehouse, running the tests if they actually run the tests, to shipping them in, to putting them there, to unboxing them, setting them up, doing all the seals, and then at the end of the night, to tear down all the hours that are spent, I guarantee there are more hours spent on these voting machines than if you just had those same people there at the end of the day counting the ballots. So it takes more time and tremendous dollars. I've spoke to the folks in Milton that they're going from machines to voting hand paper this fall in the municipal election. They're saving a pile of money, and that's just one little bitty town. If the whole state did this, we would save millions. I mean, it's a tax dollar savings, even if you don't want to believe that they're adding dead people back to the rolls or allowing people to be registered multiple times. Take all that aside. It just, common sense says, why throw money at something and overcomplicate it to where a lot of people can't work the elections because they're not tech savvy. They don't understand the machine, so they're not helping. So it takes a different generation of folks to set up the machines and extra labor for folks that know how to plug in the machines and troubleshoot and do all of that. Anyway.
Your time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming out tonight.
All right, next up is Ben Eskew.
Good evening, Board. My name is Ben Eskew. I am a concerned citizen from Gwinnett County and Peachtree Corners. I'd like to talk today about phantom voters. Ms. Dennison called the Gwinnett County Elections Office in 2021 and asked for her voter registration to be canceled. How do we know this? In our canceled voter file, she came up as cancellation reason was voter requested. Most people don't specifically ask for their registration to be removed, but Ms. Dennison did. When she lived in Gwinnett, she lived
Ben,
with...
will you move a little bit further back?
Oh.
A little further back.
Tell me when... Oh.
Yep, you're good. Yep, just a teeny bit.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm trying to figure out. When she lived in Gwinnett, she lived with her parents in Lilburn. She is now resurfaced in Lilburn at her parents' home as an active voter. What is disturbing is that her parents sold that home in 2019. The current voter roll states that last contact in Ms. Dennison was in 2023. This manipulation of dates was in fact from our voter rolls. Ms. Dennison now lives in Melbourne, Florida, and has no idea her voter registration ID is being stolen and reactivated in Georgia. The Secretary of State's office, Dominion, Eric, and cast vote on a phantom voter. This is a crime, and Ms. Dennison is a victim. We the people are victims. This takes away a lawful vote from every citizen in Gwinnett County, Spalding County, and across the entire state. If challenged, Gwinnett County cannot produce any recent data from Ms. Dennison or prove she still lives in Lilburn, because she does not. We demand the removal of Eric, decentralized voter rolls, no Dominion, no voting machines, and paper ballots. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Ben. Next up is Leanne Eskew.
Hi, my name is Leanne Eskew, and I'm from Peachtree Corners in Gwinnett County, and I thank all of y'all for being here tonight and calling this very important meeting. I, too, would like to speak on the phantom voters on our voter rolls. The Secretary of State has stated multiple times that registration IDs are never reused. They are assigned sequentially. Therefore, very small IDs are older people, and 18-year-olds have the highest registration IDs currently in the system. Any new person to Georgia, regardless of age, would receive the next available ID to be assigned. Let's discuss the canceled voter file. Ms. Smith was canceled in Gwinnett County in 2009, and the reason was deceased. She has now been brought back to life in Glenn County with a birth year of 2003 at a non-existent address. To make matters worse, her ID starts with 512. If you know how to sort IDs and look at the registration date of those voters, all the 512 IDs are registered to vote in 2000. Ms. Smith in Glenn County would have to register to vote as a 3-year-old, which is quite impossible. Ms. Smith's current registration date is April of 2022. For a registration ID starting with 512, that's impossible. This is yet another example of a phantom voter in our state. County election officials are responsible for our elections. They are being manipulated by the Secretary of State, our centralized voter rolls, and the machines that cheat. We demand removal of ERIC, decentralized voter rolls, no machines, and hand-marked, hand-counted ballots at the precinct. And I have one more thing here. Someone brought this up recently. The following countries hand count their paper ballots: Australia, Canada, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, Japan, Netherlands, Norway, Spain, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. The time has come to do what civilized nations do and hand count our ballots.
Thank you, Leanne. Next up is Amanda Prettyman.
Thank you. I'm Amanda Prettyman, Bibb County, and I want to discuss felons being automatically reissued in Georgia. We're watching canceled voters due to felony being automatically reissued on the voter rolls, sometimes in the same county and sometimes in another county. We know that a felon, when parole and fines are over, has to bring in paperwork to the elections office to be reinstated to vote in Georgia. There is no automatic reissuance to vote after a felony. In May in Gwinnett, we had a voter added at canceled voter street. In June, this voter was moved to DeKalb County to an apartment. We canvassed the apartment in DeKalb County. The current resident had lived there for over a year, but stated they knew this person lived at this apartment prior to them because they got a lot of mail, and went on to say they thought the person was in jail. Upon receiving a skip trace report on this voter, this person is still sitting in the Gwinnett jail. Who reissued them to canceled voter street in Gwinnett in May? Was it the office in the county, or was it the Secretary of State? Who transferred them to a DeKalb address that they didn't live at? We know the felon did not do this. We know the felon never lived at canceled voter street in Gwinnett. We know the felon doesn't live at the new DeKalb address. Here's where it gets troublesome. When this felon gets his life back in order and he registers to vote again, who's to say he won't get slapped with a felony for double voting? He has a phantom ID in DeKalb County. I'm sure that would be terrifying to him. Phantoms are used to cheat in elections. There are approximately 30% phantoms in each county voter roll across the state. We are finding them to be being created every day all across Georgia. This is being done outside the county's knowledge. We know right now you can't run a clean election. We demand to cut the cord to centralized manipulated voter rolls, cut the cord to the machines, and go to hand count secure paper ballots. And I also want to offer this. Donna McLeod is a former state house rep. She just finished in 2023, and she wrote back in 2019 that today the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under Law and Coalition for Good Governance and Counsel, who she lists, secured an important win for Georgia voters. United States District Court Judge Amy Totenberg issued a preliminary injunction preventing Georgia election officials from using the state's current electronic DRE voting machines. This same one has gone on now to rule against the ballot marking devices and find that they violate Georgia law. So we're skipping from one bad machine to another bad machine, and we just need to get rid of them all. And to speak to these, the voter roll issues, she also ordered significant relief intended to address problems with the state's electronic poll books. The state must develop new procedures to prevent address errors and discrepancies, which must include providing an updated paper backup of the voter registration list for each precinct and working with its consulting cybersecurity firm to conduct a formal assessment. It goes on, but this just demonstrates that this is entirely nonpartisan or bipartisan, however you want to put it. But that was from her own social media. And lastly, this weekend, I met both a 90-year-old Korean War and Vietnam War veteran, and he is just so distraught about the state of our elections and very concerned, and he said as well that he would like the machines to be gone and go back to hand-counted paper ballots. And I think that we need to honor our veterans who have faced so much and served our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Lisa Hausler?
Hi, I'm Lisa Neisler. I'm from Bibb County. I want to just speak on the precinct manipulation. By analyzing the Secretary of State files, it's been proven there was precinct manipulation in 2020 and 2022 across the state. what is precinct manipulation. A great example in Gwinnett was the person that owns a home in Beaufort and is in precinct 55. Then the month of the election, they are moved to precinct 67 to an apartment at the Mall of Georgia. Then at a later date, their address changes back to the real home address from which they never moved. We are proving that this was yet another scheme to steal the 2020 down to the mayor, the sheriff, and the school board races. Mary Benefield is one of the victims of this manipulation. She owns her home in Tucker. She received a precinct card in the mail stating her address and precinct had changed. The issue was she hadn't moved or requested an address change. She went down to the DeKalb elections office and asked, who moved my address? They told her that was confidential voter information. But she's the voter. Luckily, she was allowed to vote with a provisional ballot, but who knows if her vote actually even counted. What we really recently learned was during the time frame of the Secretary of State having control of the absentee ballot requests and mailings, she supposedly requested a ballot to the apartment she never lived in. She did not request this ballot. What happened to the ballot? How was it used? Well, the DeKalb elections office actually made her fill out a change of address from back to her home where she had always lived. We have found the same situation in other county files and know this was yet another deliberate scheme to steal our election. We should have never even certified that election or any of those elections. And we, the people of Georgia, we're banding together to get our freedoms back, and that starts with paper voter rolls, no machines, and paper ballots. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Next up, Michelle Cobb, equal voter rights.
Good evening, everyone. The last time that I was here, I presented, and I am a citizen of Spalding County, and I want to tell you more about what brings me to the podium today, because I was there in 2020 for the count. I was there for the recount. I was there for the audit. I was there when they told us that we weren't allowed to talk to the lawyers, when they told us that we had to continue knocking doors. I have knocked doors all across the Atlanta metro area. And in that time, I have got to work specifically with the Black American RNC Center for my role when I was previously the regional field director for Metro Atlanta. And in that time, I got to meet tons of voters who they said that their vote didn't count. They voted for Republicans the first time in their life, and they said that their vote was not counted because how could it be that their county showed no shift at all? From anecdotal evidence, we know that people were voting differently, but the voter rolls as well as the election results remained the same. And in that time, I also, I forgot where I was going with what I was going to say, but the whole part of it is that we know for a fact the voter rolls, the machines, they are hackable, they are not safe, they don't communicate correctly, they're connected to Wi-Fi, they're breaking many laws that we know are laws that we uphold. They're not constitutional to our state constitution. However, I was also there when we delivered 24 boxes of affidavits to Brian Kemp's office when we said, there's problems with our election. I was also there when I was threatened by the GBI and harassed not to speak. There is a cover-up going on in our state. We are taking it back to Spalding County because you guys are the last line. You're the last line. Because if you can't do it, who's going to listen to us? The district's not listening to us. The state's not listening to us. The federal government is also not listening to us. We have a systemic problem, and we're bringing it to you and calling on you guys to do your civic duty to uphold our voter rights as citizens of Spalding County. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next up is Mary Bell Hodges.
Thank you and good evening. Mary Bell, Duluth, Georgia. So our elections are the very essence of a free society. Without free and secure elections, we rapidly devolve into communism, and it is inside our gates. Tonight before you will be a decision that will protect and secure our elections. I'm here tonight to encourage you. I'm here to encourage you to stand together stand together for what is right, for Spalding County and for Georgia, not because it's popular, but because it's righteous and it's just. And it takes righteous and brave people to do the right thing. Stand together because Georgia needs righteous leaders. Spalding County can be the gold standard in setting the election processes right. Unjust weights are an abomination to the Lord, and the Dominion machines are unjust weights. The Lord searches to and fro through the earth for those who are faithful to him and to his justice. May his eyes be upon this board tonight.
Thank you, Mary Bell. Next up, Michelle Knight.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Knight, Spalding County resident, and I'm also a poll worker. I addressed this board 2 weeks ago requesting help in making our elections truly transparent, verifiable, and secure. At that meeting, you were all in agreement in your distrust or dislike of the electronic voting machines. I'm here today to ask you to act on behalf of the people of Spalding County by abolishing the mysterious, unverifiable, illegal in aspects, unsecure, vulnerable, and hackable electronic voting machines that work to suppress our vote. Webster's dictionary defines suppression as to put down by authority or force, to keep from public knowledge, such as to keep secret, to stop or prohibit the publication or revelation of, as in to suppress the election results. That is exactly what Dominion electronic voting does, and it's also what our Secretary of State does by refusing to take action to mitigate the known vulnerabilities in our system. This is not a partisan issue. The vote belongs to the people, and we the people deserve the right to see the ballots and to watch them be counted. The entire process, aside from when a legal voter steps into that booth to cast their ballot or to cast their vote, must be transparent and verifiable. Every voter deserves to know that the process is free of secrecy, hidden source code, backdoor access to electronically flip votes, illegal QR codes, and foreign interference. We should be able to count on our Secretary of State to provide those reassurances, yet he refuses to do so. And not doing so, well, that fits the definition of suppressing our vote. We've referenced the Halderman report used by the court to outline the numerous security vulnerabilities found in the Dominion machine. Alex Halderman is a professor of computer science and engineering at the University of Michigan, where he is also director of the Center for Computer Security and Society. His research focuses on computer security and privacy with an emphasis on problems that broadly impact society and public policy. His report tells us our electronic voting systems here in Georgia have serious vulnerabilities. Our Secretary of State, who has zero computer science expertise, tells us our systems are safe and secure, even though he's known for 2+ years that our current electronic voting system is anything but secure. I don't trust words, I trust actions. So don't tell me our system is safe and secure. You show me they're safe by removing any process that isn't verifiable, transparent, and accountable. The government likes to cite laws that do nothing to protect the will of the people. They say the law says we must all vote in the same manner, even on insecure machines with no security upgrades that will not be made until after the 2024 election. Lately, it seems the law is used to protect the government and not the people. To quote Thomas Jefferson, whenever any form of government becomes destructive to the ends, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute new government.
That's time, Michelle.
I ask you to throw off the machines.
All right, next up, Brian Dunn.
Good evening, Brian Dunn, Georgia resident. I am one of thousands of Georgia voters, including many here in your county, who no longer trust voting on the black box Dominion voting system because it is inaccurate, DeKalb County. It's insecure based on the Haldeman report. It's illegal as per Judge Amy Tottenberg. It is unverifiable to the voter, and it is an unnecessary financial burden on all counties. For example, The voting system is unverifiable to voters as it counts QR codes. It is not human readable text. The law states all information on a ballot must be legible and readable. The U.S. District Court found the system's unverifiability violates 2 Georgia codes. The system couldn't produce accurate results for a coffee company in 2022. It declared the wrong winners in the 2022 DeKalb District 2 Commission race. The recently unsealed Haldeman security analysis found the system was not designed, engineered, or tested properly for an election security and can't be retrofitted for security. The report outlines critical vulnerabilities that can be exploited to subvert all of its existing mechanisms. The Secretary of State rebuttal to the MITRE report has been ridiculed by 29 experts as dangerous and ridiculous. Nevertheless, the Secretary of State has continued conducting secretly counted elections with sealed ballots, even for his own unverifiable 2022 primary. Before machines, elections were 1 day. After machines, they go on for weeks. It's absolutely ridiculous. Tens of thousands of voters cannot understand why this is even a discussion. Everyone knows we're being lied to. Basic common sense clearly spells out what needs to be done in every county immediately without hesitation. Now is the time to move to security-grade paper ballots, hand-counted at the precinct, including absentee on day of election. This can be done. Many people are ready to do the work. It's a simple process that doesn't have to be more than what it is. We all know how to count, I hope. It will be done in a transparent manner, live streamed and recorded for every voter to view. And I'd just like to add one thing. I was in an election meeting earlier this year, and I was talking to a poll manager who was going into work early in the morning and saw a young man sitting in a car working on a tablet. And she says, "Excuse me, are you going in to vote?" And he says, "No, man, I'm with Dominion and I'm working on the machines." Don't tell me that these machines aren't hooked up to Wi-Fi. Every one of them has a Wi-Fi modem. They're rigged, it's corrupted, and it's absolutely insulting. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Next up, Kevin Muldowney.
Good evening, guys. Kevin Muldowney, Milton, Georgia. I've worked in various election roles, assistant poll manager, absentee ballot adjudicator, poll watcher. The majority of the job is to satisfy the requirements of the machines, not the actual task of counting votes. This is a very simple concept. 1, 2, 3. The computerized voting machines we use overcomplicates this and opens up many opportunities for fraud. We need clean elections. We need liberty and justice in our elections. We get there by simply using security-grade, hand-marked paper ballots, hand-counted on the precinct level. Please get rid of the machines. Thank you very, very much for considering this.
Thank you, Kevin. Next up, Dr. Yashunda Jones.
Dr. Yashunda Jones, and yes, I am actually a Spalding County resident. You do know that. Just wanted to speak about this issue with the paper ballots. So last meeting, we had to sit and listen to a dissertation, and it was obvious that all of this was strategically orchestrated. In quoting Dominion and Fox News, as one board member did, and then failing to state that they settled that lawsuit with Dominion for $787.5 million. I don't think Spalding County has that kind of money. We had another commissioner that stood here and talked about Athens Clarke County and how they didn't pay these fines, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. but failed to inform the public that they did pay out $41,666 in legal fees. I don't think Spalding County has that either, as the county is already cutting money for services and can't afford a lawsuit or lawsuits of the magnitude of either of these. As these other residents have gotten up here to speak, whether it's Coweta, Banks, DeKalb, Gwinnett, and Bibb, whoever, they don't have paper ballots either. I'm just not understanding why we're not calling everything election fraud, or is it just because my candidate didn't win? Why now? Why did we need paper ballots now? Not understanding that. If you go forward with this vote and your attorney has advised you that it's not legal, I'm not speaking in hypotheticals. You will be sued. That's not hypothetical. You will be sued. Before you can bang the gavel to finish this meeting, you will be sued. So I would hope you would make the right decision given what your attorney has advised you. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Maria Rowland?
It's a long ways. I should have come the other way. My name is Maria Roldan, and I'm a Spalding County resident. When I was here last, I asked this board to consider my request for paper ballots. I am here tonight with the same request. Before I say any more, I do want to take a minute to thank this board for their dedication that they show towards our community and the interest you show in being accurate and fair. I mean that. And I know that it will take more effort and time to do the paper ballots. But as I said before, when I was here last, the country I was born and raised in, Cuba, they don't have that option. They would love to have the opportunity to just be able to vote and decide their future. Instead, they are now living the third generation of communist tyranny, and they don't have that option. They would take all the time necessary to count those votes if they only could. Voting is a privilege that we have, and the Dominion machines are not a system that many have confidence in anymore. We tried it, and so here we are. The effort by all the workers to hand count is the way to have accurate counts. This paper count should be a bipartisan interest for the common goal of preserving the freedoms that we have in this great country, and I don't take those for granted. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for everybody that came. There you have it.
Thank you, Maria. That wraps up public comment. All right, we've got no minutes. Next up, adoption of agenda. Do we have a motion to?
I move we adopt the agenda as written.
Okay, got a motion, got a second, Dexter. All in favor of adopting? Aye. Got 4-0. Agenda is adopted. Next up is discussion of election integrity measures. We've got a motion that was tabled last meeting. I don't know if anybody has anything else that they'd like to bring forward.
I have a motion I'd like to make.
Okay.
Is it time for me to do that now?
It would be in order.
Do I have to make it before I speak to it? I guess I do, don't I?
You need a motion and a second, and then you can discuss.
Okay.
Right, there we go.
I have printed copies of it here, if you guys would like to have one. Give one to Stephanie.
Thank you.
I, James Newland, a board member of the Spalding Board of Elections and Voter Registration, move that prior to the certification of each election going forward from this date, July the 24th, 2023, the Spalding County Board of Elections and Voter Registration perform a hand count using the human readable portion of the printed receipt each voter receives from the printer connected to the ballot marking device used by that voter. Using this hand count to verify the totals tabulated by the electronic voting system. If these counts do not match, I move that the Spalding County Board of Elections and Voter Registration not certify such an election until such time as any discrepancy is resolved. This measure will continue to be necessary until such time as the public trust can be restored and the Spalding County Board of Elections and Voter Registration is able, to the best of our ability, to certify that the results from the electronic voting system are accurate and secure.
All right, we've got a motion. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Okay, Roy seconds it. All right, discussion. James, do you want to speak to it?
I would like to say a few things.
All right.
All elections are county elections. The Spalding County Board of Elections and Voter Registration is responsible for the elections in Spalding County. We are responsible for the election integrity in Spalding County. I believe that by counting the human readable part of the receipt that we get from the voting machines, the voter can verify what is written on them. We can count them by hand, that we will be able to determine whether or not the count made by the machine is correct. And as I said in my motion, if it does not verify the count by the machine, then we cannot certify the election. Our republic was constituted on the concept that governments require checks and balances. In 2019, Georgia adopted a system that presumably would offer a verifiable record of a voter's intentions that would be auditable, as the prior system did not. The current system, with the current legislation in place, does not deliver on this promise. The Spalding County Board of Elections and Voter Registration, using current processes, cannot verify that the results match the selections made on the ballots. However, moving to hand-marked, hand-counted, currency-grade paper ballots at this date would be extremely difficult to do by the next election when we already have a verifiable paper ballot that we can count. We have the responsibility to our voters to ensure integrity. And since we have this available, I think that we should use it.
Thank you, James. Roy?
So just a point of order. Should we be able to consider this, what happens to the motion that I made at our last meeting?
So your motion is currently tabled, and it is still on the table. It can be lifted and discussed, but we've got a motion and a second right now. So we need to speak to.
So just to keep things clean, would it be helpful if I remove my motion?
There's no need. There's no need. It's been tabled, so it's not active right now. There's no need to do that.
Okay.
We're clear.
Thank you.
Did you want to speak on James's motion?
So just a couple of things. In principle, I think that is probably as good a compromise as we might be able to get. And because everyone spoke to the concerns with the current system and its flaws, the security flaws especially, and essentially all four board members that were there said that they would, in principle, support that motion. This ought to go pretty easily, but a couple of things I'd like to see if James has thought about, and maybe if we need to add them or if we need to take them up as a separate matter. One would be that the count would be done at the precinct level on election day.
So yeah, that's something right now that, like in, OCGA is specifying that we cannot do. It has to be a central count, as far as, is my understanding. Excuse me, state, yep, state election board rules right now dictate a central count and not at precincts.
So I have a problem with that. So we're going back to a system now where ballots are moved around, and that we're looking for integrity, and we're looking for the public not to have to trust, but to be able to physically see and verify. I'd like to get a little more clarification on actually having that tally done at the precinct level on election day. The machines can still do the count. We can still turn the numbers, but having it done, the actual tally done there at the precinct level, I find to be very important to the public's confidence in this issue. And I'll give the floor back.
Okay, I don't disagree. Dexter, do you have anything?
I just got a couple questions for Stephanie. First, can this be done with the current IGA, or is it some for municipal elections, or would that agreement have to be amended since we're actually?
Can you speak up a little? I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was asking, can we do this under the current IGA, or does that have to be amended?
We wouldn't necessarily have to do this for municipal elections unless those municipalities asked for that. They have their own, technically their own elections supervisors, but, or superintendents. The cost, well, we run their election, and we are in the process actually of working on the IGA. So if we could figure in an additional cost for that, for additional poll worker time to hand count, whether or not they would agree to sign those amended IGAs, that would be the city of Griffin and the city of Orchard Hill. So I don't know.
Please speak into the mic. We can't hear anything.
Yep, okay.
Okay, another question is, can certification be delayed under the law?
I don't believe that the motion is asking to delay certification unless the two don't match. And if the two counts did not match, then I would expect that that would be something that we would find ourselves immediately in Superior Court over regardless.
And then finally, at the last meeting, you said that you thought this action would be in direct conflict with state law. Do you still hold that position?
I still hold the position that to throw out the machines and go strictly to paper ballots would be in direct violation of state law, yes.
So that being said, this is not what this motion is saying, right?
Well, I'm reading this motion to is it adding an automatic hand count? Is that what we're doing?
I believe that's my understanding, Dexter, is that we're adding an automatic hand count to basically check against the black box voting machines that we're told to just trust.
Has that been done somewhere, Stephanie?
Not that I'm aware of, but it is in no way in violation of the SEB rules or the Georgia code, the election code, at least not that I could find. And I could find no case law on the topic at all.
So Stephanie, am I correct that the method of verification of the election is up to the board?
Certification is typically a rubber stamp. this will be much more
Yes, it will.
than that. And there is nothing, I mean, the ballot images are completely a matter of public record, so there is nothing that should stop you from counting those ballot images based on the receipts that are presented and scanned in.
And there's no requirement for us to certify an election that is within doubt.
You would certainly not certify an election that was with, that you were in doubt about based on some verifiable evidence to the contrary.
Kim, how much would this cost roughly to add an automatic hand count, and how long would it take?
So there's several different methods, and I've got some rough numbers that I don't have ready right now. But
I can't answer to that, though. It's going to depend on the kind of election it is, the type of election. An
number of
election,
precincts, votes, number of races, number of candidates.
right. May, for instance, May, the primary, we have 12 local races in addition to whatever may be on there for state and federal. So that's going to be much higher than, say, your March primary preference, presidential primary preference. So it just depends on the amount of races that are on there and how long it's going to take.
And so, Stephanie, let's just play out the scenario that we have an election, we have the hand count, and there's some sort of variance. What do you think happens after that?
I think what happens after that is that this board has to make a decision as to what its next steps are going to be. It would require a meeting at basically the same time that you would meet to certify the election, and I would assume that we would file an emergency petition in Superior Court.
And how would that be resolved?
Well, typically, there is a judge that is assigned to election matters, and so I would assume that they would hear the evidence from this board as to the counts and the variations. It would probably involve someone from the Secretary of State's office on the other side, and somebody from the election board might argue that we need to go ahead and certify based on the machine's count and not based on our count. I can't imagine that a judge would take too kindly to that if there were true variances and true discrepancies that we were able to prove. And it would go further from there very quickly, I would assume.
Do you think it might arise that a judge would order the entire new election based on the discrepancies, depending upon the variance?
That could very well happen.
And so that would double the cost of it?
I didn't hear the last part. Could you repeat that, Dexter?
Oh, I was asking whether or not the judge could possibly end up ordering a second election, which would in turn double the cost of the election, correct?
It would, yes.
And so do
And
we
that
have
could
the,
be ordered at the Superior Court level.
and at that point, will we have the budget to support a second election?
While our current budget, as it stands, would not support those numbers, House Bill 769 requires that Spalding County pay for the cost of elections wholly out of county funds. It would require a budget amendment at the county level, which would take away funding in some other area of the county's budget.
And that would have to be done on an emergency basis?
Typically, the Spalding County Finance Director presents budget amendments once a year, close to the end of the fiscal year, when she knows what departments have gone over and what haven't, those that haven't, and she is able to move money around in the budget that way. depending on what the first election actually cost, and that the cost estimate of the second could require something to happen much more quickly.
I mean, my hope is that the numbers that would be hand counted would match up, you know, exactly with what the machines produce. I mean, that would be my hope. I mean,
It would be my hope also.
please, y'all. I know we're funny, but
You know, my concern is the cost. It just seems like there could be an extreme cost increase under this proposal. And I actually like the proposal.
Thank you.
I actually like the idea of an automatic hand count. I'm not opposed to it at all. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of machines. I said that last week. And I think that the key is whether or not this is something that can be done here or at the legislative level, at the state. I actually don't know, Stephanie. So I'm leaning on your expertise on this one, because my biggest fear is this plays out and there is a variance as such, and at least us having to have a second election.
I wish we had more evidence to know how it would play out, but we would be in many cases a test case for this type of thing. We would certainly be a test case for paper ballots in the state since the Dominion machines have come to be. There have been cases, there's been a case, Athens Clark went before the state election board. That was an emergency meeting of the state election board, and Athens Clark used paper ballots for 2 days during early voting before the state election board was there and ordered them to stop. Municipalities, they get to use whatever, if they want to use the machines, they can. If they want to use paper ballots, they can. So we can't rely on municipalities either. We would be very much a test case.
So if we adopted this, we're pretty much guaranteed finding ourselves in court at some point in time.
This particular motion, I would not foresee that we would find ourselves on the receiving end. I would foresee if there was a difference, then we would be the plaintiffs, not the defendants.
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
when I made this motion, I purposely did not include any details as to method of counting and such things, because we have not had enough time to determine what would be the best way to do that. That is something that we will have to decide between now and the next election. So I just wanted you to know that it's not that I am not personally concerned about the method, it's just we haven't determined it.
Roy?
So I've heard a lot about additional elections and cost and all. And I gotta tell you, accuracy is the most important thing.
Amen.
It's not important, money is not important, accuracy is 100% important. And I don't think we should have a conversation that says, well, an extreme case is that we might have to have another special election. When the accuracy is in question, nothing else matters. And Michelle Long Spears in DeKalb County went into a race where she got 0 votes in the precinct that she lived in, challenged the election, and found out that not only was she not third place, she won the election. So we know there are issues that can happen with the current system that we're using. And there's been hand counts around the state for years. You can do it before, you can do it during, you can do it after. There are all kinds of bits and pieces when it comes to the how. But as James's motion, and I've listened to it, I haven't actually read it, but I have listened twice now. It doesn't say how. And I think that we should get a group together as quickly as possible if it passes and figure out the how. But we can't be having a conversation because we're worried that we might have to have a special election if the accuracy of the vote is in question. That's ridiculous.
All right. Dexter.
I'm gonna be very transparent here. I was in support of the motion until I hear that response. And I'm gonna tell you why. The notion that the citizens have us appointed to this board and not look at every possible way our decisions affect the community is ludicrous. The notion that you can say it doesn't matter how much something is going to cost when we're the ones who have to pay for it makes absolutely no sense. I think the motion was very well thought out. And I think absent that comment right there, I know I would have voted for it. I said it's a good motion. I said last week, I don't like the machines. I don't trust the machines. But the state of Georgia obviously does.
Please.
Well, according to the statute, according to the law, we have not stood up and said the law needs to be changed. It needs to be changed. Stephanie said last week, when that original motion came up, it went against the law. He goes home, he thinks about it, he said, let's figure out a way to present something that doesn't violate the law, that is inclusive, that brings everybody together. I read energy. There was good energy in this room until that comment was made. Because the comment then negated all of the goodwill that went into that motion. For me.
Please, everybody.
For me. That's how I feel. And I have to vote how I feel. And when that comment is made, it damages the efforts that are being put forth, because now it makes people think there's another agenda involved. See, that comment was not necessary, but he's entitled to make that comment. But that's what happens when you say things that divide the community. That motion brought the community together. It was excellent.
I hope you can put personal feelings aside.
I cannot.
Okay. Call the question.
I'm complete. I'm fine.
Right, or you going to call the question?
Oh, I call the question.
All right. Do we need a second? Roy? All right, we have the question call and the second. All in favor of James's motion? 3? No? All opposed? 1? Dexter? Motion carries. All right, board member comments. I didn't say very much there, so, I really appreciate everybody coming out, and I appreciate Dexter's comments that it was a well-formed motion and that it was something that was bringing the community together. I wish it wasn't something that was black box voting machines that we're forced to use that brings us together. The proper scope and venue of, what this board actually can and can't do. I've heard lots of arguments multiple ways, and, flat out, without something going to court and getting just knocked down, as I've seen case after case after case, I don't feel that we can do more right now, but I do feel that this motion is a good first step in achieving both elections that are both legal and satisfy this board's oaths to attempt to restore public trust in the systems that we are using. You know, I heard QR codes over and over, and this does seem to address that. And we are getting a paper hand count out of this, so I'll take 50% over 0 every day. James?
This board intends to do all we can to have fair elections, elections where each voter counts, but as few people who don't really exist vote as possible. And I appreciate Stephanie and her staff because I think they're the best
Kim?
at it.
Kim?
Kim,
okay.
I'm sorry, Kim and her staff. It's been a tough day.
It's good.
Kim and her staff, they are the best at it. And they have caught things for us before. I think that we've just handed her a problem. And I'm sorry to have to do that, but I think it's necessary.
Dexter?
I just want to thank everybody for coming out. You know, the fact that this room is packed tonight over this issue is a clear indication that people are concerned about elections. And I'm one of those people that's concerned about elections, but I think we have to do it the right way. And Jim, I just want to say personally, you know, thank you for you to come back with that motion. It was very thoughtful. It was very well thought out. It really was. You know, you sought compromise, and I said this a year ago. In order to truly make America what it's supposed to be, it's going to be that compromise. We got to come together in order to save this country. Everybody knows this country needs saving. There's no question about that. There's no question that our legal system, our political system, none of our systems are operating the way they should. But we have to do it the right way.
Roy?
Oh, I don't think I have anything to say right now. Thank you.
All righty. Your nose looks clear. I'm sorry. All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Dexter?
I second.
James? All in favor? We stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.